Today I'm going to be discussing communication in elite performance settings. So first of all, we're just going to start with the basics. Essentially, communication is just the exchange of information. When we think about communication, a lot of people just simply think in terms of words only, but there are many different forms of communication: written, verbal, nonverbal. And what we see and what we hear mesh together to communicate meaning to us. So, verbal communication is just the sharing of information through speech. We do it every single day. Nonverbal communication is more wordless cues like facial expressions, gestures, the tone of voice, the posture of the person you're talking to, their body language, their proxemics, which is just their distance to you, your personal space. Those are just a few examples of nonverbal communication, and there are 6 key elements of effective communication that I wanted to touch base on, and those are that the message must be clear, concise, correct, complete. You can't just deliver half of the message. You must deliver it in a courteous manner, and the message should be constructive. These are all very important elements of communication, and next I'm going to discuss a model of effective communication. In their book on effective coaching, Foss and Trotman presented a model for effective communication. So first is the communicators. Both the sender and the receiver are communicators in an effective communication process. Both are involved in encoding and decoding the messages. Next, the message. 3 important elements should be taken into consideration when regarding the actual message itself. The code used to represent the message, the content of the message, and the treatment of the message. So, for example, a ski coach treats a message in a particular way by selecting the language of communication, how technical the content will be, and what tone of delivery he should use. Next is the channel. The channel used to transmit the message is the mode of encoding and decoding messages using one or more of the 5 senses. And finally is feedback, which is just the reaction of the receiver, and this feedback provides the check of effective communication. Foss and Trotman also introduced 4 factors within the communicator, whether sending or receiving, which can influence effective communication. So those are communication skills, the knowledge level of the subject matter and the other person, the attitude towards oneself and the other individual, and the subject matter as well, and the relative positions of the communicators within the sociocultural system. So it's important when thinking about communication and discussing communication to take those factors into consideration. So on the last slide, I discussed some factors within communicators that influence communication, but I want to mention a few more that I feel are helpful for coaches to understand. Things such as the athlete's perception of something could be different than yours, and that could affect communication. The athlete may jump to conclusions that could definitely halt communication. It's important to keep track of emotions, not letting them interfere with communication. Or the athlete really just might not agree with the coach himself, and so it's important to always be aware of the situation. And at such an elite level, it's imperative that communication be highly effective between the athlete and coach. Otherwise, there will be a lot of room for failure. Next, I just want to discuss coaches. As a coach, there's a few things that you should be asking yourself when thinking about effective communication. Like, do I have the athlete's attention? Am I explaining myself clearly? Does the athlete believe what I'm telling him or her? But more importantly, do I believe what I'm telling them? So, as a coach, to maximize your effectiveness in teaching and leading, it's important to possess a certain trait to effective communication. So that's things such as like just stop, look, listen, and observe your surroundings. Knowing what to say is the hallmark of effective communicators. Likewise, being diligent and an interested listener is the key to understanding others. Effective communicators provide context. So when giving instruction, words have far greater impact if a framework of meaning is given to underpin the message. Make sure the athletes know why they're doing something and buy in to the system. Stimulus and response. There's a gap between stimulus and response. The stimulus is what you say, what you instruct, and the gap is where the listener or the athlete takes the cues from the verbal and nonverbal messages that are delivered and forms meaning to those cues. So it is essential, mind that gap. Being conscious of the style and sensitiveness of your audience will help you to interpret how they found meaning from your communication. This is the biggest one that I can stress is just be present. Look them in the eye, try to figure out what they're telling you. Be an active listener. Genuinely care. Don't be on your phone. Don't be writing things. Don't be preoccupied. Really listen to them. Another one is exercise emotional control. Knowing what sets you off, knowing our stressors, whether it be locations, people, words. We need to be aware of those things so we can control our response to those situations rather than being reactive and vocalizing something we might come to regret. Learn to just create a helpful internal dialogue and processing thoughts before we externalize them is a huge asset, that especially to coaches, especially in high pressure situations when the temptation to verbally erupt is very, very high. It's important to know what will set you off and what will keep you calm at the same time. So at this level, two-way open communication works best for you guys. The athlete generally knows what they need to do, and the coach is able to step away from the authoritative style. You know, you guys can have a relationship, a positive and supportive relationship with each other, and very open two-way communication. With you being at such an elite level, this doesn't need to be something where the coach is instructing you 24/7 and keeping tabs on you all the time. This can really be a two-way relationship. One aspect of communication that's extremely important and essential is being a good listener. Especially at this level, it's necessary to listen well. That's how you learn things. That's how you pick up on cues that your athlete's giving you and that your coach is giving you. It's important to work on an open, honest, and effective communication relationship. And one activity I have always found helpful in enhancing communication is just the blindfold game. So in this setting, you pick a performance aspect that you can be talked through, and you put a blindfold on and have your coach just instruct you. He just talks you through the whole thing. You can't see what's going on. You can't see what's in front of you. You just have to trust and listen to him. So, I mean, this is really a good way to increase both communication and trust. And at the end of the day, clear, open communication will breed the most success at the elite level. And I think it's really important to understand that there's not just one activity or one statement that can fix communication. It's something that takes active trying, its consistency. You have to work at communication every day to be an effective communicator. If you have any questions, any concerns, I'd be happy to answer any of them. Just let me know, and thank you very much for your time.